For kilometers off the coast of Japan, an enormous giant airport is floating in the ocean. It is so massive that it can even be seen from the International Space Station in space. This is not only the world's first airport built in the ocean, but the bridge connecting it to the land is also the longest bridge of its kind. The state-of-the-art design of the airport was built on what was then the largest man-made island ever created. Specifically for this airport, it was constructed at a cost of $20 billion, approximately $1,650 billion in local currency. This entire project is an engineering masterpiece. But what flaw was left in its construction that is causing it to sink deeper into the ocean day by day? Why did Japan take the risk of building an airport in the ocean instead of on land? And what are engineers planning to do to prevent it from sinking? In this Discover TV video, welcome once again, viewers. When discussing future technology and astonishing structures, how can Japan not be mentioned? Japan launched the world's first high-speed train, the Tokaido Shinkansen, just 18 years after being completely devastated by nuclear attacks during World War II, shocking the entire world. While the rest of the world merely talks about shock absorbers for vehicles, Japan is the only country where installing shock absorbers under skyscrapers to withstand earthquakes is mandatory. However, not every Japanese engineering project has been a success. Mistakes happen, and the Kansai International Airport is one such example. This airport, built in Japan's Kansai region, is very close to Osaka, Kobe, and Kyoto, where 3 airports already exist within a 50-kilometer radius. However, due to Japan's growing population and economic demands, another airport was needed. The problem was that the existing airports were surrounded by dense urban areas, making expansion impossible. On the other hand, the available land in the Kansai region was being used by farmers, who refused to give it up for an airport.
Japan's only option to boost exports and facilitate international tourism was to build the airport over the sea. The chosen location had a depth of approximately 60 feet, meaning an artificial island had to be constructed first. Construction of Kansai International Airport began in 1987 with an initial estimated cost of $8 billion. However, due to project complexities, the cost soared to $20 billion. If the airport had been built on land, the cost would have been even higher because acquiring farmland would have required hefty compensation payments to farmers. Engineers designed to islands for Kansai Airport, 4 kilometers long and the other 5 kilometers long, both resting solely on seawalls. To fill the ocean floor, 750 million cubic feet of soil was excavated from the mountains. Japan had built artificial islands before, but this time, the seabed for kilometers offshore was composed of unusual mud, making construction risky. Engineers collected samples from the ocean floor, and after testing and calculations, some experts estimated that the airport would sink about 19 feet, while others predicted it could sink over 25 feet. Regardless, it was clear that the airport would sink. To save costs, officials designed the island and airport foundation to account for 19 feet of sinking. This was their biggest mistake. The first step in construction was to harden the ocean floor. 1 million drilling pipes were inserted and vibrated to compress the loose sand, making the floor more stable. Special sand that absorbs water was then placed in the 1 million drilling holes. To construct a 24-kilometer-long seawall, 48,000 concrete blocks were used. These blocks were placed between steel chambers filled with stones and debris, forming a protective barrier against storms and massive waves. Once the seawall was built, soil was added to raise the island's height to 65 feet above sea level. Afterward, construction workers began building the airport and runway. In 1990, a bridge was built to connect Osaka to the airport, costing about $1 billion. It was expected that the airport would sink by 19 feet, but during construction, the island had already sunk by about 34 feet. This meant that before the airport even opened, nearly half of its original height above sea level had been lost. At this point, engineers estimated that in 50 years, the island would stabilize at 13 feet above sea level, just enough to keep it safe from flooding. However, their estimate was wrong. The problem they expected to occur in 50 years happened in just 10 years. By the time the second terminal opened, the island had sunk 50 feet, leaving it only 13 feet above sea level. Today, The situation is even more critical as it continues to sink deeper. Some predict that by 2015, the airport will have sunk an additional 13 feet, reaching sea level.
To prevent this, continuous efforts are being made to raise the airport seawall, with $150 million already spent. But strengthening the seawall alone is not enough. Hydraulic jacks have been installed under the airport foundation, which are adjusted every 2 years to lift the airport by about 1.5 inches. While this doesn't stop the sinking, it does delay the inevitable. All these efforts to save the island and airport are just temporary measures. Japan knows that the airport will eventually be lost. By spending millions of dollars each year, they are not only trying to save the airport but also buying time hoping to build a replacement elsewhere in Kansai. Meanwhile, nature continues to pose a threat. In 2018, Typhoon Jebi struck Osaka, raising sea levels for 10 hours and flooding Kansai Airport. Runways were submerged, and parked airplanes suffered significant damage, forcing all airport operations to shut down. Kansai International Airport is gradually sinking, but the Japanese don't see this as a failure, they see it as a victory. They dared to accomplish what no other nation has ever attempted. We hope you enjoyed this Discover TV video. Please like and share it. And thank you for your supportive comments. See you in the next amazing video.